What's up, chat? How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the stream. It's Tuesday. We're getting tactical on Tuesday. Incredible. It's funny how that happens every week. And we are coming hot off the heels of the WTC. So biggest team event in the world, the Olympics of Warhammer 40k, as it were. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm excited. Now I have a video that's should come out tomorrow, where we'll go through the French team composition because they were the winning list. So what I wanted to do today is go through lists from the WTC and talk a little bit about some trends that we're seeing in sort of the game overall, as at least in terms of the team format, as well as we can take a look at some of the top performing lists from represented factions at the WTC, which I think should be fun. So yeah, that's what we got going on today. I want to thank everyone for coming and hanging out. I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend and is ready for some amazing 40k talk. I have some super cool stuff coming out later this week. Should be, I think, Thursday is going to be the actual day. But what I've been working on today, I'm going to send a link to the chat. You guys get a little bit of a sneak peek. I've made a new YouTube channel. And what we're going to be doing on that channel is, and if you're a patron, you probably already know this, but what we're going to be doing on that channel is talk about video games. So I have a channel discussing Warhammer 40k themed video games because there's a lot of those coming out. We should have the first video on the channel live on Thursday. So please go hit a subscribe over there if you want to get first access to that. If you are a patron, though, then you already have seen the video, so that's exciting. But yeah, it's a long one, and it's taken me a couple weeks to finish. So that's been where a lot of my time is gone. So yeah, drop a subscribe over there. Should be a good time. We're going to talk about a bunch of video game stuff. Anyway, that's a little bit of an announcement out of the way. I'm also going to be live after the stream ends, in about an hour after the stream ends, most likely 7 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, so 3 hours from right now. Over on the Purple channel, we're playing some 40k. I got some Dark Angels. I'm playing Demons. We're playing against some Dark Angels. Lionel Johnson's making an appearance. Should be a fun time. So that's also going on. And if you are a TTS person, go check out the Discord. We have new events available. We have a GT as well as a new player focused Youngbloods event. Those are both currently have registration active, and those are closing on Friday. So if you are a TTS person and you want to get some additional games in, get on over there. Get your registration in, because those are going to have prizes. There's going to be door prizes for playing all the way through both events. The new player event is only door prizes. You don't get anything for winning. So as long as you play all your games, you're good. And that one you can play Legends. So we're doing a Legends event because it's fun and it's a little bit laid back. So play your funny, silly stuff. The GT, obviously, no Legends allowed, but there will be door prizes, and there will be prizes for people winning, and that one gives out T5S2 standings points as well. So, that's what's going on with me, chat. That's, yeah, I guess, I mean, that's I think channel 5 we counted on stream the other day. It's the 5th channel. Let's do it. Did any team go Kroot? I don't think so, chat, but I would not be super shocked if we saw some Kroot. Get the Space Marine 2 clicks. Yeah, that's part of it. So we had Speed Freaks come out last week. It's a week old now. Congratulations on 1 week, Speed Freaks. And they just dropped an update, actually, which is rad. The update rules. And that game's incredible. So we're going to talk a little bit about that game. We're going to talk about some Space Marine 2. But yeah, I'm also going to do, I would like to make a regular thing of it, if people like it, is to do some deep dives into OG 40k games. So I have a deep dive into original Space Marine. It's 85 minutes long. This is going to be the video out on Thursday. It's fucking huge. and dive into the history of the game, obviously do like a retrospective on the campaign and the multiplayer, and talk about some of the interesting little tidbits from that. It's funny to talk about old 40K games because 40K lore is like so ancient. Not only in terms of the actual in-universe timeline, right? But also it's like almost 50 years old at this point. So you run into these just insane things that have changed over the years, or like old school lore pieces. It's super fun to talk about. So that's what that channel is going to be about. But yeah, today we're talking about WTC over here though. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. Let's hop over to the old World Team Championship over here on Breast Coast Pairings. So we're in the player breakdown right now. So ranks all the players by their results. This is a little bit weird for team events because typically your placement in a team event is not necessarily representative of what a placement would be in a singles event. These are always really kind of an awkward statistic to look at. And honestly, I guess like you want to track it, and some events do like reward people for individual player placing in team events, but it's strange because like it is so manipulatable, right? A lot of times what teams will do, and this is an important thing to discuss in terms of the team format, is that there's a pairing process for each round, and teams will present a defender team which then gets attacked by two opposing teams, and you choose one of those matchups to have. So oftentimes the defending teams early on in the pairing process get worse matchups because the goal of the other team is obviously to give them their two most difficult matchups as possible. Now there's a lot of strategy to that because you can try to pin teams towards the end of the pairing process where their only selections are matchups that are bad for them, and so trying to manipulate that process to get yourself the better pairings is always better. That does mean that typically there are some factions that are played which are very low. I guess they're not necessarily high win rate factions, but they are high scoring factions because the event uses differential scoring. I've talked about this quite a bit on the channel, but just for folks at home who might not necessarily have the context of how the WTC format works. You have a 20-point score that's shared between the two players, and essentially the differential between your scores gives you a share of that 20 points. So if it is typically for every 5 points you beat the other player, you take a placement point away from them, a battle point away from them. With I think a little bit of like a buffer on the first point. I think you have to actually beat your opponent by more than 5 to get an 11-9. But essentially, let's say you beat them by 20 points, you would take 14 of those. You start with 10 points each, and you essentially take 4 points away from them, so you end up with a 14-6 if you're beating them by 20. So there are factions, and if we look here, we can see there's a lot of factions like Space Marines, there's a lot of Thousand Suns, a little bit of Necrons, which is pretty interesting, but there's a lot of these factions that are absolute killers, and these are the factions that these teams will typically use to beat down their opponents and to use in the most favorable matchups possible. The final result...
I think there were 26 Tyranid teams. Were they taken as defender to try and lose with as little points as possible, or with a different strategy at WTC?
Yeah, that is thanks for the super chat, by the way, Ryan. Appreciate you, buddy. That is typically the strategy for Tyranids, and there's a lot of factions like Tyranids to do that. Tyranids also, so the other thing that can change this pairing process are super hard skews. Tyranids can skew a couple different ways. You can skew monster heavy, and you can be very defensively oriented. So that forces, when you put up Tyranids as an army, that forces the other team to pull out these super high damage output lists, right? And then try to pair those into Tyranids, and that can give your team better pairings later on in the process. Tyranids can also take Vanguard Onslaught, and we saw a bunch of Tyranid Vanguard Onslaught lists that were just all offense all the time, triple Broodlord, triple like Ravener, triple Tyranid Warrior, melee warrior, and billion Lictors, and they just deploy everything frontline, and they just try to roll to go first. And they take the coin flip shot at a big win into a hard matchup. They're typically Tyranids are good enough at scoring that even if nothing goes perfectly, they'll give up a couple points, but they don't very often get 20-0'd. But if you're playing something like Vanguard Onslaught of the Million Broodlords, and you could get into a matchup where your opponent doesn't have infiltrators, and you roll to go first, you have a good chance of 20-0ing them, because you just pin them into their deployment zone, you bug jail them, and you just run them over. Unending Swarm was played pretty heavily for that reason too in team events, but I think that has fallen off a little bit. So that creates these situations where, in terms of the individual player placement, the factions that are typically used as these kind of hammer blows to get these big, huge wins. As a player, you're kind of incentivized to play those factions because you'll get that higher player placing if it matters. But that is a way that it's kind of manipulated by teams. But the other thing that it does, which I think is really interesting, and as I was reviewing the lists before the stream, one thing that I noticed is that your faction and your faction's role in the team format actually kind of brackets you inside the player placing, which I thought was so funny. So at the top here, right, we have Thousand Suns all over the place. Everyone's on Thousand Suns at the very top of the WTC rankings, and that's because Thousand Suns are this army that you get into a good matchup, and they are unstoppable, and they punch through armor, they do devastating wounds everywhere, they double Doom Bolt you for 1 trillion mortals, and you get vaporized. And if you can dodge their bad matchups, Thousand Suns are absolutely crazy. So these are armies that the team format, that the teams tried to manipulate to get into their good spots. We also see some Space Marines for the same reason. But once we drop down to sort of the middle here, I would say somewhere over here, we start to see Grey Knights pop up, which is super interesting. So around this 40th placement, we see Grey Knights pop up. We also see Tyranids, and we also see Necrons in this sort of zone right here. And that's usually because these are very maneuverable factions that are really good at scoring very highly. Chaos Demons a little bit in there too. And so these are factions that are oftentimes used as defenders because you can almost be guaranteed to score at least 10 points with these factions. So you're taking a Necron Hypercrypt Legion, and worst case scenario, you're going to be able to Cosmic Precision some Locust Destroyers into the opponent's back line. You're going to get behind enemy lines. You're going to get established Locusts. You're going to get some passive secondaries. You're going to be probably good on primary. If you take the Immortal Bomb, you take a bunch of Immortals with the Chronomancer, and you can Cosmic Precision, shoot, move, and take any objective on the table, essentially. And you can Windmill Slam Unbroken Wall at the end of the game. You can Windmill Slam Command Insertion, potentially. And there's almost no way to stop it. And so Necrons, even if they don't win that, super duper often, they do score 1 trillion points. And the same thing is true of Grey Knights. The same thing is less so is true of Tyranids. And I think we actually did see a lot of Tyranids kind of drop off because I think the Pariah Nexus format is worse for scoring for them. In Leviathan, I think we would have seen every single team have a Tyranid player, specifically for the fact that you can take a Biovore, you can take Gargoyles, and you can always just score 10-point games. Even if you get tabled, you're going to score at least 75 points, and your opponent's going to be down on primary, and if you don't win, you will probably blank even their toughest matchup. In terms of the differential points. Less so now. Now Tyranids are more about those blowout wins with a Vanguard Onslaught. But we do say with Grey Knights, a lot of teams in Grey Knights for that reason. And I thought it was interesting that I tended to see, interestingly, kind of in this mid-league section here, there's also Adeptus Sororitas, which I think it just got kind of thrown to the wind because they're very powerful right now. So and I guess they're kind of mediocre at scoring, right? They're not the best scoring army, but they are good at killing everyone. So Adeptus Sororitas was in a lot of these sort of middle tiers, but we tended to see at various kind of striations of the placement ranking, different factions. And I thought that was really, really cool. So that's typically what these armies are going to be included to do. And most team compositions, unfortunately we can't look at the lists here, but most team compositions were including kind of a set selection of these teams. And it is a little unfortunate because I think that Pariah Nexus has kind of stagnated things to the point where most of these compositions are pretty cookie cutter in terms of both the army selection, right? Like everyone's going to have, almost everyone's going to have an Adeptus Sororitas. Almost everyone's going to have 1,000 Suns. Everyone's going to have a Space Marine. Almost because you have to, because they make up like 60% of the entire game. So you sort of have to. And then you're going to have like some selection of like Necrons and or Grey Knights or both. A lot of people took Chaos Space Marines because they're very maneuverable and they have the opportunity to get those scores. Or Drukhari is a very similar faction. A lot of those those very fast and aggressive, high-scoring dedicated transport armies saw a lot of play. And then a couple, there was a little bit of Eldar as a bit of a foil. They're kind of good against a lot of the scoring sort of MSU armies, and some Death Guard as well against the very really aggressive melee stuff. But for the most part, the sort of team composition was kind of rote, and I think a lot of the individual lists were pretty similar. So we didn't necessarily see like a ton of like super interesting builds, which made me a little sad. But talking about the exact builds, I do think is important. Although the one thing to keep in mind, obviously, is that these are probably built with certain matchups in mind, because you always have the opportunity to dodge your bad matchups in WTC. Can we talk about Exocrines being 135 points? Exocrines are definitely, really good. And that's right. I mean, they're like a top. I think. Where did I put them in the Tyranid faction ranking? Like number 3 unit, at least somewhere around number 3 for sure. Top 5. Nero Tyrant I think was number 1. Then like Lictors and Hormagaunts, and then Exocrine somewhere in there. But they're nuts good for 135 for sure. Definitely one of the things that keeping Tyranids relevant. Definitely. Dan Legion, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, man. Hell yeah. 500 shorts? Holy shit, dude. You hit the ground running on that YouTube channel. That's insane. Oh my god. Shout out to Dan Legion doing shorts on every unit in 40k. Hell yeah. All right, so I think we had a couple people who wanted to take a look at Adeptus Custodes, and we can do that. And if anybody has a particular faction that we do want to look at, Ash with Singapore and Thailand, Yothin, Suwon Pradi. Over here with Adeptus Custodes, if you might have some insight into this list, if that's what we're talking about. We have this is a Talons of the Emperor for number 1. And interestingly, this is the list. I think we took a quick peek at it earlier. We might have taken a peek at it for War Masters, but also there was a discussion in the Discord about it. The Warlord is Kyria Draxus. There are no other characters in the list. That she is the only character. We left all the Blade Champions at home. We left Trajan Valoris at home. We left Shield Captains at home. Who needs them? Nobody. They're trash. Get them out of here. We have a Custodian Guard Squad for Kyria Draxus to jump into. A couple of Pyrithite Spear Custodian Guards. So they're the Forge World ones with the Melta gun on top of their spear instead of the Guardian Spear like Bolter. 2 units of Venatari Custodians, a Venerable Land Raider to carry those Pyrithid Spears guys to the table. And the benefit there of the Land Raider is that you have a super strong reactive move in Talons of the Emperor. So the interesting thing, and we did sort of discuss this a little bit last week when we were talking about Talons lists. The interesting thing about Talons is that all of its stratagems are dual target. They can target up to 2 units, but they are not required to target the 2 different unit keywords. So typically what the detachment does is it gives you benefits to both shield guys, to both regular Custodian guys, and Anathema Psychana. However, you can just use the stratagems normally. So in this case, they can use Taloned Pincer as a reactive move. You get up to 2 units within 9 inches of an enemy unit that normal moves, advances, or falls back. You can select both an Anathema Psychana unit and a Custodian Guard unit, just a regular Custodes unit. And they get a 6-inch move. So it's at the very least a 1 CP squad tactics, essentially. So it's a strict upside squad tactics with the potential that you can select 2 units with it. So we have 3 Psychana Rhinos and a Venerable Land Raider. So you can run these Custodian Guard right up in the center of the table, blow something up, and if your opponent's coming to hit you with melee, or they have to come in close to attack you, you can also like come out with Vigilators or something. You can theoretically in and your opponent has to play around this. This is part of the benefit. In a perfect world, you can fall back both or move back both of the Vigilators and the Pyrrhithite Spear Custodian Guard back into their transports and force them to kill a Venerable Land Raider in order to actually get access to your Custodian Guards. So that's mostly what we're doing. The Anathema Psychana Rhinos also trigger a bunch of their sort of combined effects. So for 75 points, you get a Rhino that has a 3+ Fatal Pain against psychic attacks, which is great. Rhinos are already great. Can't carry the Custodians, obviously. It can only carry the Sisters of Silence. But you have an extra outlet to turn on your detachment ability, so to protect the Custodian stuff with the Feel No Pain from against mortal wounds and stuff, and to turn on your dual unit synergies. The Custodian, the Pyrrhithite Custodians, if I remember correctly, there is also a strat for +1 strength and AP. You target up to 2 infantry units. I actually misspoke. I think the last time we talked about this, and we talked about it on stream, I think I said you could do it on Caladius Grav Tanks, but you can't do that. It's only infantry units. But you can get +1 strength and AP, so you can put those Pyrrhithite Spears to strength 10, AP 5, I think, is the number. And you just can only target the 1 enemy unit, but you're going to do that anyway, so it's like kind of whatever. So, yeah, you just get a big punch out of that, too, which is good. I've heard that being strength 10, AP 5 is a good profile, a good weapon profile. Were there any orcs at WTC? Yeah, I think there are a couple. Orcs are another faction that I think is generally good at scoring. Sometimes orcs just die to stuff like pushing super far at them, but at the very least, they're going to be able to like drop Storm Boys in you and put a ton of pressure on you and at least rock up a score. Even if you beat them at the end, they're probably going to be okay. So a couple of people played orcs. I think they're sort of like, their place is sort of being taken by Tyranids a little bit because they sort of do the same thing, but they're just like, go first and just rush you. Yeah, they're definitely a little bit of orcs. We can take a peek at orcs afterwards. Yeah, so that's the Talon's Custodians, which I think, honestly, and we definitely talked about this last week, but I'm so glad that Talons of the Emperor is getting some play. Some solid results over here out of Votann. 2 20-0s and a 16 and 2 16-4s, which is solid. A very good result. There were also a couple of shield hosts, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it looks like down at 60th place, Team Poland had a shield host do fairly well. Rocking a Blade Champion, Valerian. This is a little bit more standard of a list. Do we have Kyriodraxis? We do. We have Kyriodraxis and a Calidus Assassin, so a little bit of utility there. 2 Witch Seekers, 2 Venetati Prosecutors for utility. Double Custodian Wardens for the characters to jump into, 2 Caladius Grav Tanks, 1 Rhino, probably to get Scout from the Witch Seekers. So you can push an additional unit up the table for utility, and then a Custodian Guard Squad for Kyrie Draxus to hop into. Valyrian is pretty interesting. I don't actually see him that often, but he bakes in an Armor of Contempt on his leadership ability onto his unit. So the Custodian Warden Squad that has Valyrian in it is -1 to be wounded, situationally, has it once per game 4 plus feel no pain, and is permanently Armor of Contempted. They're very, very hard to kill. That unit sticks around, man. And I was surprised I didn't see him more often, because the one time I did see him, I was like, oh my god. I think I streamed a game with him at a GT a couple months ago, and watched just an army break upon Valyrian. It was a World Eater's army, I think. Just go into him and do nothing. Stone cold nothing. And then he killed an entire Master of Execution's Corn Berserker brick, which was pretty sweet. So that's a cool inclusion that I don't think we see very often. The most vanilla Custodes list. Yeah. It's pretty standard stuff. But you know what? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So we were looking for orcs, chats. Let's take a peek at orcs. It looks like there's 10 orc lists. So there were 40 teams. So we saw 25% of the metagame rocking orcs. Lucas Troller from Team US was the top placing orc player. Just going to plug my phone in here, chat. Apologize. And it looks like we are seeing sort of that. This is a very classic sort of defender score stat line here, right? He's probably put up first into some kind of middling matchups in order to score highly and not lose by too much. So he didn't have any big blowout losses, which is important. So his role on the team was to soak those bad matchups and score highly anyway. So his worst loss was a 6-14. 14-6. And then other than that, he kept most of his games pretty close. He lost 8-12, 9-11, and then he got a 10-10 draw and a 11-9 win. And then he did blow out 2 people, probably just by going first and pushing them into their table corner. He was wrecking Green Tide, actually. That's rad. Okay, fair enough. Top performing orc list, ranking Green Tide. 2 beast bosses, triple pain boys, triple war bosses, a weird boy with brutal but cunning, and then a million orc boys. Looks like 1, 2, 3, 70 orc boys. 3 units of flash gets, Gretchen unit, 2 storm boys units. Now, I like the beast boss inclusion there, actually. So I don't believe that they have attachments, right? There's nothing that they can jump into because there's no beast snaggers. So I think these guys are just here to clean up vehicles. Because they get that anti-monster, anti-vehicle for devastating, like Wombo combo. Yeah, they get devastating on the charge, and they start an anti-monster, anti-vehicle for. They give +1 to hit as their leadership effect, which can buff their claw, but their choppa has more attacks anyway. So unless you're punching medium infantry, it doesn't matter. So I think those are just in there to hop out of. Do we have trucks in this list? Yeah, we have 2 trucks. So they're just in there, hop out of trucks, and just cut tanks in half. Which I like. That's cool. I guess they can jump with the flash kits, right? Because the trucks have a 12 transfer capacity. Oh, I gotta clear my throat here, chat. One sec. Sorry, apologize. I had something in my throat. I ate a chicken finger earlier. Hope I'm not gonna choke to death. Yeah, we get 12 models in a truck, so we can put the flash kits unit with a beast boss to just hang out and jump out and kill something if we need to. That's cute. I actually like that. And then otherwise, we're just taking a ton of boys. You have the weird boy for the what's the word? For the teleport and charge. And then Gretchen and Storm Boys to score. Yeah. There you go. Green Tide still putting in the work, even though the detachment's been nerfed all to hell in the update. Take another quick look for orcs here, chance. 202 from China. This is a roller coaster ride of an event over here from Lawrence Shi. Went down 18-2, 15-5, 16-4, and 15-5 again, but they got a 16-4 win and a 20-0 win. Also, this is just a war horde. Pretty standard war horde. Double beast boss, a war boss with super cyborg, another war boss, double beast snaggers for the beast bosses to join into. Excuse me, 2 boys units. Do we have knobs? Mega knobs for Gazgul, and then knobs for the war bosses, yeah, and then storm boys. Yeah, this is pretty standard. It's pretty standard orc fare chats. I don't know if there's too much to glean from this one. This is it's a normal war horde list. Apparently, we should all be playing Green Tide though. Green Tide's killing it. But again, that was probably designed for the with the team format in mind for sure. Now, another faction that I did think was pretty interesting was Adeptus Mechanicus. And we did kind of see Mechanicus be another one of these factions that takes the place of this really high scoring, super, just kind of like this points bulwark, if you will, for your team. Top placing Adeptus Mechanicus was only at 107. How many Adeptus Mechanicus were there? 6 out of 40 teams had one. Luke Mintoff over here from Team Malta. Look at this defending stat line here. Luke Mintoff was an immovable wall against his opponents. He refused to give up too many points. He lost 1 game, 15-5, and tied 3 games. 3 games. And honestly, I've said, I think before, that I don't really like differential scoring in the context of singles events. So this scoring system where you tug of war for points, essentially, because it punishes you for having harder matchups. But in the team format, it is absolutely super duper cool because it lets you take these armies that all they do is try to stall out your opponent, and I think that's absolutely super sick. Tide's better than teams than Warhorde? Yeah, that might be the case. I think Green Tide, I like the Beast Boss inclusion there, honestly, because I think Green Tide does run into a little bit of a hitting power problem. And when you're only relying on the Orc Boy sort of profile, and it's not as hard to kill as it was, it gets a little bit awkward. So yeah, we're running a Skitarii Hunter cohort, pretty classic for Adeptus Mechanicus. Triple Skitarii Marshal as the characters, Battlesphere uplink on one of them for the shoot and scoot, Clandestine Infiltrator for the forward operation, the infiltrate and scout, and then Veiled Hunter to redeploy that guy if we need to. 1, 2 Skitarii Rangers, 3 Skitarii Vanguard, 4 Scorpius Dune Riders to carry them around in. Do we have a Kyria Draxus? Let's hear a chance. We do. Boosh. Plus 1 Disintegrator with a Faramite Cannon. Get a little bit of anti-tank shooting in there. A big Sicarian Ruststalker unit. That's classic. Nowadays, because they're a melee counterpunch. That was actually what the army was missing a little bit. You could take so many models, but as soon as your opponent pushed into you, you basically had like sterilizers. And if your Iron Starter Ballistari couldn't shoot any aggressive opponent off of your army, and honestly they had a tough time a lot of times, then all they were doing was killing Skitarii for the rest of the game. Oftentimes that was fine with you if you were the Hunter cohort player, because all you would do is just sit around and score points and auto-see them on objectives and just be okay for the entire game. You would watch a lot of Skitarii Hunter cohort lists just get tabled but still win. But now with the changes they got in the update, they now have these powerful sort of counterpunch units, and so Sicarian Ruststalkers can hop out of a Dune Rider and just vaporize one thing. They'll probably die on the crackback because they're not very hard to kill, but that definitely gives the list a little bit of a sort of additional utility. We had 2 Iron Strider Ballistari units with las cannons as well to follow that up too. So Yeah, just a list of the trillion OC, a bunch of forward operation. The clandestine infiltrator sometimes just ruins a whole matchup. I actually played a game on stream last week where a clandestine infiltrator's KRI Marshal jumped to the center of the table, and I was playing triple Broodlord, and he stopped all the Broodlords from scout moving. So I paid 700 and whatever 20 points for 3 Broodlords that did not have scout on their data sheet. Essentially, I got to scout like 3 inches around the corners of the table. It was a mess. So sometimes you get to just like absolutely scam people. You win the roll off in deployment, and their whole thing is scouting or infiltrating, and you go, no, you're not going to do that. I'm gonna spend 130 points or so. And one of my characters, and you're just not going to go anywhere with your army. And if you go first, it's even worse because they just move directly into you. They just advance onto your deployment line, and you can't go anywhere. So you can toast or jail people into their deployment zone as well, which is another way that this army just kind of prevents it from losing out too hard. But another good one for the team format for scoring. I guess we should talk a little bit about Grey Knights, because I have a sneaking suspicion. I think Grey Knights are probably one of the most ubiquitous armies. 28 teams took Grey Knights out of 40. I guess it would be more difficult to count the Space Marines. I imagine every team had a Space Marine player, because it's very difficult not to at this stage, because the Space Marine faction encompasses all of the sub-factions, so you can only have one, even if it's Dark Angels or Space Wolves or Black Templars, those all count as Space Marines, so you can only have one of those. That's part of the team composition rules, is that you only get one of each army. So you can't just take 8 of the best army in the game and call it a day. So I imagine every team had a Space Marine player, just because that there's like so much utility in Space Marines. But almost every team had a Grey Knights player as well for that scoring. Let's go jump to the top here. We did have some really high scoring Grey Knights. Jokul Johansson over from Iceland, rocking some Grey Knights. This is a very hammer blow style Grey Knights army, and that's a little bit of a benefit that Grey Knights have nowadays, I guess, is that previously, if we were to talk about this 2 seasons ago, if we're talking about the team format, Grey Knights would be in here with a bunch of librarians and a bunch of Brotherhood Terminator squads, and they would be just scamming people for points, right? They would just be jumping around the table, Mists of Deimosing, Rapid Ingressing, and stealing objectives away from you constantly. So your score was trash. Even if they lost, they would make your score terrible. But now they can kind of do that a little bit to a lesser extent. Nemesis Dread Knights aren't as good at holding objectives as Brotherhood Terminators are, but they also just get to hit you with hammers too. So they can be a pretty solid sort of damage contender too, if you build these Dread Knight lists. And there are some matchups where Nemesis Dread Knights do tend to shine. It's interesting because the profile has some very specific good matchups, like from a metagame standpoint. If you are playing other Terminators, for example, the last thing you want to see on the table is 3 Nemesis Dread Knights, because those heavy side cannons are perfectly statted to kill heavy infantry. So if you're rocking your own Space Marines or something like that, these Nemesis Dread Knights can come in and just clear all your big units. All your Gravis stuff is dead. All your Terminators are dead. And that can throw a real wrench in your pairing process a lot of times. We do have Kaldor Drago, double strike squads, an interceptor squad, 3 Nemesis Dread Knights, and a paladin squad for Kaldor Drago to jump into. Interesting to see him in a paladin squad. They do get that -1 to be wounded, so they're tough to kill. And we're rocking a bunch of incinerators too. So it looks like 3 incinerators, I think, in the squad. So getting up close and personal to the people for Kaldor to unlock the charge bonus is already going to be good. Theoretically, they can kill like a utility unit on their way in, and then unlock his big, huge +3 to charge, and then kill something important as well, and then hopefully Mist of Deimos away. But a lot of times, because the standard Terminators have lethal hits on the charge, you oftentimes see him with the regular guys. But we got Paladins today. Let's take a peek and see if we have... This is Grey Knights bracket right here. The 30th place. It's just where Grey Knights live, apparently. Lachlan Rig, Team Australia. Look at all these W's. Oh, he did go down 20-0 last round, which is unfortunate. It's another Nemesis Dread Knight build. Looks like it's kind of similar. We've got the Brotherhood Terminator squad for Kaldor Drago instead of the Paladins. but otherwise is identical. And I think we've saved some points and gotten a Tech Marine to hang out with him. That's the only difference. 2 Tech Marines. Hot damn. Gonna get those Nemesis Dread Knights to hit on 2s. I guess that's interesting. Like, it feels like Grey Knights have sort of become a mono list here. This one has Brother Captain Stern. This is, by the way, Jakub Podruksny. Podruksny? Hopefully that's right. With Brother Captain Stern, he's got a 2+ reincarnation when he dies. He's a little Celestine action, so he's actually very good by himself as a kind of a lone operator. He just sits on an objective all game, and if you really want to try to kill him, you can, but he'll probably live. A Brotherhood Librarian, Sigil of Exigence, triple Nemesis Dread Knights. 1 Terminator Squad, probably for the Librarian to jump into to soak the Vortex of Doom overcharge when he blows his own head up. A Strike Squad, an Interceptor Squad for utility, triple Nemesis Dread Knight. Yeah, so it seems like everyone was rocking the Nemesis Dread Knights queue today. Was the highest performing result there. New Deathwatch list: Canis Rex, 2 Corvus Black Stars, 5-6 max kill teams. I don't know if I'm all about the max kill team life. At least 6 of them. I think a lot of armies can answer 60 tactical marines. Oh, so Breaking Heads did some meta breakdowns of 40k factions for WTC. Valor, thanks for PMing that over. Appreciate you. And this is from Breaking Heads. Shout out to Fred in the Breaking Heads crew. I love those guys. Hope they had a good weekend over the WTC. So it looks like they broke down Space Marines per sub-faction. There were 21 Blood Angels, 8 Dark Angels, 2 unassigned Space Marines. So that's 31. 4 Black Templars, 35. How much you want to say 5 Space Wolves? 5 Space Wolves, yep. Every single team had a Space Marine. Oop, I lost it. Every team had a Space Marine, chats. Incredible. 100% faction representation. Let's go. Turns out that's what happens when about 60% of the detachments available in the game are Space Marine ones. They get so much focus. It's hard to not include a Space Marine. 1,000 Suns was, I guess, the next highest. 33 for 1,000 Suns, 29 for Adeptus Sororitas, 28 for Grey Knights, 26 for Necrons were the top inclusions. Grey Knights and Necrons both good for high scoring. Sororitas and 1,000 Suns both good for as sort of those hammer blow armies to score big points. So they're very strong and fit well into the team composition. What do I think about the World Eaters list from Team Australia? Let's take a peek, chat. Apparently you can't search by team name. Okay. World Eaters list from Team Australia. Well, I will say, it was not a, I guess, averagely scoring army. This army either won or big or it got destroyed. 1 10-10 and a 12-8. And then 2 0-20s. Scored 0 points in 2 games. A 16-4, a 20-0, and a 15-5. Or a 5-15, I guess. Hashtag 30nators. He's playing 30 Terminators? No way, dude. Karn the Betrayer. No Angron. Get him out of here. Who needs him? Who needs Angron? The guy sucks. Double, triple Jackals, 15 Corn Berserkers, a 10 and a 5 with a Rhino to jump probably the 10 around. It'd probably put Con the Betrayer in that unit so he can hop out, get those rerolls, those nice hit rerolls. 1 8-bound unit, 2 8-bound units. A little bit of forward operation there because they have a scout and 30 Terminators. Certainly a list, chat. I like the composition a little bit here. So the 8 bound, you put most of those in reserve. I guess you physically cannot put all of them in reserve, which is a little bit awkward. But you probably put 2 of them in reserve, I imagine. And the game plan is to rapid ingress them into an obnoxious place, and then you can actually guarantee a pretty good charge out of rapid ingress. I want to pull up their data sheet real quick here too, if I can find it. Does it exist? It's literally the last one on the page. So you can get the movement bonus. They can go to move 7 with advance and charge potentially on the turn after they come in. So you can set up situations where they just like blow out people with huge advances out of deep strike. They're also tough to kill because you can use the -1 damage stratagem, right? In the fight phase, you can give them +1 to wound, and then you can get -1 damage for 2 CPU, which is a little expensive. And if your target is below starting strength, they get +1 to hit, so they're almost permanently +1 to hit because they'll probably shoot you with a gun first. So I can see the appeal for sure. I think they seem a little low, low output, I guess. It's like 6 power fists, 2 chain fists, and 2 twin length guys, which is okay, I guess. It's like solid anti-vehicle, and their power fists are strength 9 actually, which is kind of an important breakpoint. So that's good. That's good at least. Plus they get, I guess they get +1 strength, so they go to strength 10 on the charge and +1 attack. Yeah, it's actually a little bit better output than I expected. And you're kind of annoying to kill on the crackback. I think the downside is that you're relying on sort of low base movement units, and you don't necessarily have that like alpha strike that people are usually worried about world eaters with. I mean, you get a lot more sweeping, which is nice because you have a ton of combi bolters and Reaper chain cannons and stuff, which can definitely help you clear screens. Plus, the 8 bound are good too. So the 8 bound having scout lets you clear out like forward operators on the first turn, and that gives you like basically command of the table in terms of deep strikes. So I could see it for sure. The more I look at it, the more I like it. Definitely thought it was a meme at the beginning, and it probably is a little bit of a meme. The performance was a little inconsistent, unfortunately, for Dean over here. But I know he's a good player. But I wonder if he got sort of thrown to the wolves a little bit there and was like, well, maybe I'll go first and I'll kill all their screens with the 8 bound, and then I'll just drop Terminators wherever I want, and then you're dead. But I guess then you're giving yourselves up to the vagaries of chance. Oh, it's from the Terminators and stuff. Did I just misread the Terminator data sheet? I think I did, chat. That's what I get for only saying. I think I've seen Terminators on the table 1 time. Oh yeah, if the unit is below starting strength, that is less good than I thought it was. I don't like that as much actually. But theoretically, I guess it makes this. It's hard to like kill an entire Terminator squad in one go. So it makes the smaller unit like squads pretty good if they're kicking around. They're alive and kicking, and I think it's every time they make an attack, so it works on their guns too. I do remember that their Reaper autocannons get kind of nutty when the unit's small, because you're shooting sustained hits +1 to wound, devastating attacks. It's pretty good. Demons are the sleeper hit. More factions should have taken them. Yeah, Daemons are another army that I think is really good in that scoring slot. We can dive into Daemons next. How many Demon players were there? This only says 4. Is that right? Did I close your link already, Eldar? I apologize. What am I doing with my life? No. It was only 4. Whoa. That's shocking, actually. That's insanity. Demons... That's so wild. Demons were a really strong team pick for Leviathan. I think most teams had a Demons player, simply for the fact that you could basically just Hypercrypt people. I guess maybe they just got replaced by Hypercrypt Legion and Grey Knights. Like, people didn't feel that they needed them as much because Grey Knight, like, the Nemesis Dread Knights is like a better Greater Demon spam, and the and Hypercrypt Legion is just Hypercrypt Legion, and it's great. I don't know. I think that's maybe the thinking. So they're like, well, why did we need demons? We already have teleporters everywhere else. This is the list that we talked about last week from Warmaster. Ryan Agius rocking all greater demons, chance. We talked about this one. Yeah, he did very well at Warmasters. He did not quite make top cut, but I think he missed it by just a couple places. But he did. He actually had a very good final score. Warmasters, it was funny, and it's a little bit of a carryover from the WTC itself, because a lot of people just bring their WTC armies and use it for practice. But Warmasters is funny because it was like kind of dominated by skew lists. Just a bunch of people skewing, which is hilarious. But that does typically happen at the team event, and it's basically just an offshoot of the team event for sure. Demon allies for other chaos factions. Is that, I guess, like, you occasionally have some stuff in Chaos Space Marines. But like World Eaters, Thousand Suns, and I guess Chaos Knights occasionally. Were Chaos Knights like widely played here? Because they usually use demon allies pretty extensively. Yeah, I did forget that you can only... that the allying in the army removes it from your roster selection. There weren't that many Chaos Knights. There aren't like a huge number of Chaos Space Marine compositions that run Demon Allies right now, though, to be fair. Outside of a couple Nurglings, like, randomly. Which, I guess if nobody else wants to play Demons, you might as well take the Nurglings, right? But the interesting part was Chaos Space Marines in Thousand Suns. I think a lot of Chaos Space Marines had to forego their... rubrics and stuff, I imagine, right? Because they would eat their Thousand Suns selection. If they rolled that way, I think there was some contention, right? Sweden had a pretty solid Chaos Knight. Okay, cool. Yeah, so this list anyway is ranking Be'lakor, Bloodthirster with Argath, the second Bloodthirster, Endless Gifts, Great Unclean One, Kairos, Everstable Order Change, and Rodigus. List after my own heart chat. This is all my favorite units in the game. Would be all my favorite units if Be'lakor's melee stats weren't trash. Gonzalo de la Moneda over here from Team Spain, rocking some Chaos Demons. Team Spain did great, by the way, which I think is to be expected. I think Spain was, I want to say they were second. They were, yeah. Which is to be expected because Spain is like just a a breeding ground of team events. Spain has the biggest team events in the world. They're just constantly running huge team events. Spain randomly, for those who don't know, Spain randomly runs the largest events in 40K, at least like over the course of a weekend. Like super major level 200, 300 player events, and they're always team events, and they all constantly play them. They are all about the team format over there in Spain, which is rad. So this was running a Bloodmaster, so +1 wound on blood letters, a Bloodthirster with Argath, a Gua with Endless Gift, 2 Bloodthrones, so 2 Rendmasters for the +1 strength, EP, and damage, a Skulltaker, Scarbrand, Celeste, double blood letters for the 2 characters, a Plaguebearer unit, Blood Crushers, 1 Seeker. So Celeste it's been so long since we've seen Celeste on the table. But I guess, like, compared to all of the lone operatives and demons getting upcharged, Celeste is actually looks pretty reasonably costed. Celeste is mostly in there because they have a pretty good melee profile and they have that regeneration. So they're a deep striking character that you can just jump in your opponent's backline. And if your opponent's like, oh, I'll shoot them with a gun and kill them, you're like, okay. Well, on a 2+ they come back. And then they just start to kill all your infiltrators or whatever in the back. And they sort of throw a huge wrench in your opponent's works. So they're very difficult to actually remove. Or they can sit on an objective, and it takes 2 full phases to kill them. Just super obnoxious, unless you roll a 1, of course, and then you're sad that you paid 120 points. But yeah, then otherwise we just have a ton of basically corn offense, big, great unclean one to break people's lines on, and then bloodletters to steal people's objectives. Bloodletters have been such an interesting story, I think, in the last sort of 2 seasons or so, because they started out being, I think they were really bad. Nobody looked at bloodletters, but I think people realize, and especially now that you can deliver them with bloodthirsters, people realize that they're actually extremely good at taking objectives, because it's 10 OC2 models. They're pretty good at killing stuff. They're not great, but they will kill 5 Space Marines super dead, which is probably as much as they cost. With, I guess, some upside if you have a character attached, and you can start to kill bigger stuff, because the characters themselves are actually pretty solid at fighting. And then they also get that charge bonus because they're any of the larger units have that, or the Instrument of Chaos, excuse me, it gives you +1 to charge. So they have a very, very like guaranteed charge out of Deep Strike with a high OC value. So they're like Hormigons or something, where you could just drop the kids off at the pool and immediately steal an objective and probably kill something, and then force your opponents to deal with them. So they're just like this excellent disruption unit. And it was so funny because for the longest time, literally nobody played them. Wanted to add Scarbrand to World Eaters. You have to bring a unit along. Scarbrand also doesn't really have synergy outside of demons. Like, that's part of the issue with the greater demons right now, is that they don't, like, you want to take them outside of, like, in their allied factions, but it's weird because they are so synergistic with their own faction, and most of the army abilities, you currently incentivize you to take as few allies as possible, especially in Chaos Space Marines. So, like, the biggest one is Thousand Suns, in my opinion, where it's like, well, you could take, like, Kairos or Lord of Change. It'd be cool. You had a second, like, big flying Psyker, except you can't affect them with Kabbalistic Rituals. They don't generate you Cabal points, and you have to take a Horrors unit. To be fair, the Horrors are good. You might just take the Horrors unit anyway, because you can stand on an objective and not die, which is not something that Thousand Suns usually does. But it's unfortunate, yeah, and it's a little similar for World Eaters, where, like, you could take, take a Bloodthirster. He doesn't have Argath. You have to take a Bloodletter unit. You don't get the Demonic Incursion Deep Strike, so you can't, like, do the Bloodletter drop on people, because you don't have Shadow of Chaos, and you don't have the Detachment ability, and you don't benefit from Blessings of Khorne, or interact with the Blessings of Khorne roll in any way. So, it's a little sad. I don't know, like, how you would go around fixing it. I think that the idea for demonic, like, summoning is that you just have utility units with Deep Strike available to you at all times, which is nice. Like, taking random Bloodletter units for a unit that could just, like, rapid ingress, move, and roll, like, a 4-inch charge onto an objective. That's not bad for 120 points, to be honest. But it is unfortunate that it's, like, super tough to fit the big flashy guys in, because we did lose those kind of, like, super monster mashy lists from previous editions, where you went all in on just a bunch of the big idiots from a bunch of different factions. I was reminiscing about there was a Gilliman and Lion list from 9th edition, which was available for a hot minute after Lion came out, where you played double Primarch. And it was kind of mediocre, but it was very cool. Especially because Gilliman had cross-faction benefits. He could buff people from other factions. So the two together are pretty good, because Gilliman could make Lionel Johnson faster, which is sweet. Made for 11th with this attachment crap is rewritten from the ground up. I doubt it, to be honest. I don't know if they would go back and rework all of the list composition rules again, because they already did that once, and I don't know. It seems like every other edition or so they do, like, a datasheet revamp. I imagine, man, it's so sad. We're already talking about a new edition. We're only a year in, and we're like, well, probably maybe time for 11th. What do you think we'll get in 11th? Fuck off. Fuck off, GW. I just want to play one edition for the rest of my life and just have you make changes to it so that you make it better. Just improve it so it's good. But eventually I don't know. Probably 12th edition we'll see another revamp and indexes get released and stuff. But I wish they would give it a reasonable amount of time and then re-release the whole game instead of doing it every 2.5 years and kind of making a shit show of it because they don't give themselves enough time. We're a year and they've started writing, yeah. Yeah, what's interesting is that we're gonna see some. It's the trajectory is always funny because we start to see some like really weird transformative stuff right at the end of the edition, like towards in that like that 60%, 75% through the edition, where they start to do like really bizarre things where they're like, oh, we're gonna release these codex, but it only has 2 detachments, but the detachments have new army abilities in them. And you're like, what is this? And it turns out it's an idea they came up for 11th edition, and they're just implementing it now in 10th edition. That's going to start to happen. Just you watch. There's going to be some weird shit going on in the next, probably another codex cycle from now. We're going to start to see some weird shit. Should we talk about Tyranids, chat? Let's dive into some Tyranids. I feel like a couple of people were asking about Tyranids. Let's talk about it. Team Austria, Lucas Woback. Holy shit, dude. Just killing people over here. 15-5, 20-0, 10-10, 20-0, 15-5, 19-1, 10-10. Did not get worse than a draw. 2 20-0s and a 19-1 on his record. Absolutely destroyed it. Rocking a Vanguard Onslaught reactive move into Lone Op. Let's go. Yeah, it's the classic, the Vanguard Onslaught scam. I think I can kill your Neurolictor. Oh, can you? I don't think you can. I think it might physically be impossible. Because for the low cost of 2 CP and a discount from a Hive Tyrant, he can move 6 inches away and then only allow you to target him if you're within 6 inches. Which you are, by definition, not. We got double Broodlords. Hive Tyrant, Neuro Tyrant, Wing Tyranid Prime for some warriors. Double Gargoyles. And a Biovore for scoring. Triple Exocrine. Like to see them. 2 units of 5 Gene Stealers. I like the 5 Gene Stealers. It feels much more reasonable than the 30 Gene Stealers that we typically see. You're only in, if the Gene Stealers get blanked or they don't do anything, you're only out 300 points. You're not out 730 points. That feels okay. I like that a lot. Plus you get shooting. Shooting's important. Exocrines are so good. We already talked about it at the beginning of the video. Exocrines, one of the best data sheets in Tyranids. Just extremely, I guess they're not consistent damage output, but they just have a lot of it. They got a lot going on. Bioweapon, melee warrior, plus his own thrope unit for the Neuro Tyrant to jump into and blow people up. Pretty classic, to be honest. Double Neuro Lictor, double Lictor for lone operatives. Yeah, not too much else to say about this. I really like this list, actually. It feels very well-rounded for a Vanguard Onslaught. This feels like it's a singles list, to be honest. Like, this doesn't even feel like a team event list. But I think that it probably goes to show you that, Vanguard Onslaught's highly technical to begin with. And if you are... if you do give yourself a broad spectrum of matchups, you're not necessarily hoping for those like big blowouts. You're better into a wider variety of lists, so you're probably doing better. Cool list on that one. Let's jump down a peg. 38th place. Yeah, so we're in the Grey Knight territory here. This is probably where a lot of Tyranids end up. Oh, no. 80th place. 80th place is the Tyranid Stratum. So, 30th place belongs to the Grey Knights. Tyranids, 80. That's where we belong. 38th place, Joshua Townley from Team Wales. Vanguard Onslaught. Similar composition, actually. Double Broodlord, Neuro Tyrant, Winged Prime. No Hive Tyrant. We left him at home, chat. We don't need him. Instead, we took double Gargoyle, double Hormigaunt. So a lot of really offensive objective disruption. 2 Exocrines, 20 Gene Stealers. So we're a little bit harder in on the Gene Stealer build. A Biovore, double Lictor, double Moloch for the Downy Uppies. A little awkward that we don't have the Hive Tyrant to make that cheaper. It's actually like a lot of efficiency. If you can like drop the Molochs early and then put them in reserve for free and then drop them again, you get that free every turn essentially, which is extremely good. Plus awkwardly 5 Tyranid warriors. You don't have like a transport or something, right? It's just 5. That's weird. Huh. Alright, well. Who needs the 6th one? Maybe that's a misclick on the list. It really only took 5. Alright. They're smaller, I guess. Easier to hide. You still give up blast because you have 6 models. I don't know. Oh, I guess you only have to worry about 1x1 coherency because they are a little chunky. Yeah, that's probably the actual reason. Man, you just leave 25 points on the table there, though. It's so interesting. Okay, well, you know, clearly it's working out. Joshua Townley's at the WTC and getting a bunch of 20-0s of the Tyranid list, and I'm not. So he knows what's up. That's fascinating. I'm so worried about the coherency that he dropped an entire Tyranid warrior from his list. Take the cycling over the 10-year-old codexes when you start it any day of the week. Well, it wouldn't be, I think, necessarily that the codexes remain identical, but part of the issue is that like GW gets much better, and this is a little bit why power creep happens, right? Games Workshop gets much better at designing codexes as they, and this is true of literally any design, right? Your first iteration, it's got some problems. There's some bugs to work out. And maybe it doesn't work as well as you hoped it would. So the first brace of codexes to come out are always a little awkward and weird. Space Marines were probably kind of a success story, I think, for 10th edition. But it turns out when you give the faction the ability to just reroll their hit rolls, they're probably going to be pretty good across the board. Not to mention the fact that they also have the benefits of tons of other supplements and buffing them too. But what typically happens with 40k is that the first 1 to 2 rounds of codexes will come out, and they will be largely trash. And then as the format matures, the designers get better at designing for that edition and for the mission set. And then, as soon as they're at a point where the game is at a good spot, and they are good at designing for that format, they re-release it, and everything changes. New missions. Oops, bumped my mic. New missions, new core rules. Everything is new. And all of that collected experience is wiped and reset entirely. And so, I don't think that anyone wants the codexes to remain identical for the like in perpetuity, right? Because you don't want to be like that first release codex where they did it really badly. But what they did used to do back when really releasing an edition was a big deal, and they only did it every 5 years or so, is that they would go through codexes and they would cycle back through the codexes as they went, and those codexes would get updated, would get better mechanics. Now they release one codex for each edition, eventually towards the end of the edition, and then they wipe the slate and do it again. And I think that is just a travesty, to be honest. It's exactly not how good game design works. You don't take all of your collected experience and then delete it. Like, imagine if Wizards of the Coast was like, all right, guys, we released 4 sets. So now it's time to rewrite all the core rules of the game and how deck building works. And so now, all of these tens of thousands of collected man hours of design, experience gets deleted, and we rebuild the game from the ground up. That would be insanity. That would be nuts. That would absolutely not be a good game. That would be a bad game, and that's exactly what GW does. And it's wild. It's wild. And it's basically how you do a rotating format in a miniature game. I get it. I know what's up, but it's It is not conducive to good game design. Is the moral of the story. All right. I'm going to take another peek at Tyranid Lists. We're going to see if we can find a Tyranid List that is not Vanguard Onslaught. We're over here in Norway. Crusher Stampede Champ. The third placing Tyranid List, Victor Bergenholtz. Rocking a Crusher. Hell yeah, dude. Old One Eye. I love that everyone puts a theme song in, by the way. The real metagame of the 2024 WTC was theme song selection. You have to be good on your theme song knowledge. That's important. You got Old One Eye, Swarmlord, a Neuro Tyrant, 10 Gargoyles, 20 Hormigons, a Biovore, double Exocrines, double Lictors, 1 Neurolictor, Pyrovore, a Trigon. Oh, I love it. The Trigon is such a troll. So, he's got a 3-inch Deep Strike. Everybody thinks that Vanguard Invasion has a 3-inch Deep Strike, or Vanguard Onslaught, excuse me. But it doesn't, because it just has the uppy downy. It doesn't have the other component that usually detachments have. Like Chaos Demons and Hypercrypt Legion and Grey Knights are all like, hey, we got the pickup and we got the 3-inch Deep Strike. You're missing that part in Vanguard because you have Trigons, and theoretically, now that Trigons are Vanguard invaders, you can actually uppy downy the Trigons and drop them near people. We're not doing that today. Instead, we're just rapid ingressing this guy. But he is probably one of the game's most obnoxious rapid ingresses because he's very good in melee, especially now that if you drop him next to a Synapse creature, he goes to strength 10, so he's actually hitting pretty hard. And if you put him in range of exactly enough stuff to do any damage to him, first of all, he can flip objectives really easily because he's +2 OC to begin with. So I think he goes to OC 6, if I remember correctly. So if you have 5 models on an objective, he'll just take it from you and then score it for the Tyranid player next turn. That's obnoxious. If you do any damage to him, he loses that 2 OC, but he gets +1 to hit. And suddenly, I think he's 12 attacks, is that right? His 12 3-damage attacks are hitting on 2s instead of 3s. And his damage output improves wildly. So he gets huge benefits from the detachment ability, and it can act as a disruption piece as well. Yeah, he's base OC 4, and he has 12 attacks, it's strength 9, AP 2, 3 damage, so it goes to strength 10 with Synapse, and hits on 2s if he's taking any damage in the detachment. Potentially gets +1 to wound too, and at that point, once he's +1 to wound, this guy starts eating people alive. Love the Trigon in this attachment. That's a great inclusion. Triple Rupture Cannon Tyrannofaxes. Let's go! Super tough to one-shot these guys because they got that once per game of Blade of Armor, so they're almost assuredly benefiting from the +1 to hit from the detachment ability. And they can just wander around the table and just be blowing tanks up. This list is cool. We take a lone Old One Eye. He's another model that is tough to kill entirely. He's 2+8 with a 5+ Piano Pain. If you don't kill him, he regenerates, which is a little anti-synergy. Although he then goes back up to his starting strength if he regenerates back to full eventually, and can get +2 OC. So I think he goes to OC 4 or 5. He goes to OC 5, yeah, if he's at top of the profile. And as soon as he gets +1 to hit, he goes crazy too because he hits on 3's base. But he's strength 14, AP 3, D6 +1 damage. So getting +1 to hit in that guy rules. This list is cool. It's all the shooty bugs just wandering around. I like it, chat. I like it a lot. Wizards does that with D&D. Yeah, D&D is like a little bit of a... D&D is, I think, an entirely different... a different consideration, though. Because D&D is an evergreen system. Like, people... When you're going to play Warhammer, right? Because Warhammer is more of a kind of a broader spectrum, right? When you're going to play Warhammer and you don't have a distinct group of people that you play with, so you're either playing competitively or you're going to a communal place. You're playing pickup games at your local game store, all that stuff. You're almost assuredly going to be playing the most current edition, right? And that's especially true for competitive play, because competitive play basically falls apart if it doesn't get played at the current edition. D&D doesn't do that, right? Because you can access D&D game editions from previously, and people do that all the time, right? Oh, I play 3.5. Oh, I like 4th edition. Oh, I like AD&D because I'm an insane masochist. So like re-releasing D&D doesn't have the same impact that it does for competitive games. Shadow Sun got called out for not having a theme song. You lost the theme song meta. Ugh! How did your team keep you around after that? That is so embarrassing. They should do 2 years to release all the codexes, then update the core rules and codexes with V2 over the course of another 2 years. Totally a new edition after 4. I mean, why we even gotta like put a timeline on it? You know, like I think I guess like that's 4 or 5 years is like probably a good cycle. 2 years is too fast, in my opinion. And to be honest, I kind of don't like the new mission seasons they're doing. Like I think the game, and I think it's kind of a perennial problem. It's getting very criticized very heavily right now. But I think the game cycles too quickly right now. Because you're going through, at least it's 1 year increments, at least for 10th edition. 9th edition was 6-month seasons. So your mission pack changed every 6 months. So you're looking at like a 2 and a 2.5 year time scale. And then within that, that's broken up by mission packs. And I don't, and it feels like the mission packs are changed for change's sake, which is the same for editions, to be honest. They're just changes to sell core rollbucks, which is fucking nuts. And they don't really introduce anything new and exciting. I like secret missions in Pride and Exodus, definitely a positive change over Gambits. But I don't know why we need to change the entirety of the rest of the mechanics, right? To introduce secret missions. We could have just replaced Gambits with better mechanic, and then incremented the format instead of entirely re-releasing it and changing a bunch of stuff and getting rid of a bunch of secondaries and making the format like way more random, which I don't particularly like. And we're probably in for one more season before the edition's over, and I don't know. I don't think Pride Nexus was an improvement over Leviathan, like holistically. So you were also getting sort of like sub editions inside of edition now. It's too fast. It's too much. What strength 10 or above is in the new Agents of the Imperium Codex, other than the Corvus, Black Star, and Heavy Thunderhammers? Off the top of my head, I don't think there is anything. But there is some like pretty high strength stuff. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. But like you can get breachers that are like wound rerolling with heavy weapons, right? Like that's something. And you have some characters with solid weapons. And you have there's like random smattering of stuff too. Release a new edition when you have something new to say. That is a good way to put it. That's a really, yeah. That's a really very good succinct summary. It's funny because like Games Workshop very clearly updates rules for the purpose of changing the codex or of the core rulebook, I should say. So there are many instances in which a rule will change between editions that has no reason to change. I think a good example was like obscuring from like train keywords from 9th edition to 10th edition. They just included the rule. They changed the wording of the rule for no reason to a version that's way more complicated and it's like way harder to parse. And they attached it to ruins instead of just having it exist as a train keyword for train types. Like, why did they change that? I don't know. Why did they change the charge rules? I don't know. Because they wanted to. Okay, cool. There are some improvements between 9th edition and 10th edition, but a lot of the stuff they just changed to make changes to the game. 8th to 9th is like really bad for that. There's like very minuscule changes in the fight phase rolls and stuff that didn't do anything, but like Just made the game kind of more annoying to play. It's bizarre. Secret missions are broken. Like broken too good or broken too bad? I've heard both ways, to be honest. I think that they're fine. I think that there are some factions that can abuse them and some factions that don't. And most factions don't. And they give you something to do if you are sort of getting shit on primary. I just played a game last week where I secret missions. I've seen a secret mission like, I don't know, once every like 20 games or something. I'll get a secret mission done, which feels appropriate. And it very rarely flips the result of the game. Can't find an Imperial Knight Atropos. Any suggestions for something like a gun turret? For like their arm guns? Yeah, I'd look up 3D prints for sure. Bond against a Necron player, I hit on primary, picked a secret mission, scored extra primary to end game. Beat like crazy. Yeah, that's I think a Necron specific experience. I think Necrons are the only faction that does that consistently. Necrons and that one Astra Militarum list. But like I think that that's okay, to be honest, because I don't like Necrons aren't killing everyone with secret missions. They just have a different game plan than you do, which can be frustrating. I understand that. Like they're basically playing a different mission than you are, but that requires like a different line of play, I think, to be able to beat. And maybe in some matchups it's too strong, but I think that if it was truly broken, Necrons would not be as kind of middling as they are. New Obscuring gave us early Eldar towering. Yeah. The towering was like so insane. Oh my god. My favorite was, I think I streamed a game where I think it was an away games game, and there was a Wraith Knight with his like gun up in the air. And he's just poking over a ruin. I was like, Jesus Christ, man. He's like, oh, I got my gun. I'm reloading my gun. It's pointing up. Now I can see the whole table. Okay, dude. Whatever you say, man. You got it, my guy. Most can't do secrets, the few that can't abuse them. Well, I think that the few that win with them feel like they're abusive, right? I think it's kind of like the mechanic working as intended, but like feeling really bad, which is maybe problematic, right? Because the person who loses to a secret mission is like, oh, this sucks. But again, I think that it's very narrow. It's a very narrow experience. Literally just hypercrypts for the most part. All right, Chance. What else should we talk about for WTC here? Let's see. So I think that there's some factions. We're going to jump back to the main topic today. I think that there's some factions that we probably don't need to take a look at. I don't know if I'm particularly interested about talking about Thousand Suns here. We have Dark Angels Gladius Task Force. Yeah, the Dark Angels Gladius Task Forces and Space Wolf lists are kind of whatever. That's whatever. Necrons is almost entirely Hypercrypt Legion with some number of super heavies. Olivier Weiss is 100 Black Templars though, which is cool. 110 plus characters. 115. Woo. We got some Astra Militarum here. Team Bulgaria. Pavel Yanechkov. I'm gonna go with that. Yanechkov. Running a Tempestus Scion Command Squad. Let's go. Lord Solar Leontis, Platoon Command Squad, Tank Commander. Double Catachan Jungle Fighters, 2 Chimeras, 3 Bulgrin units, so that's 15 Bulgrin. 2 of 6 and 1 of 3. A Kazurkin unit. a Leman Russ, an Exterminator, a Rogaldorn, double Tempestus Scion. So a big one for the command squad to jump into, little one for utility. So get this big unit for to blow people up, get the sustained hits, and maybe double orders maybe from the command squad if he has a command rod. No, he has a gun. So just one order from that guy, but he gets to order his unit when he jumps in. So you can do +1 to hit, or you can do double. You probably actually just do double rapid fire, because then you get additional plasma gun shots that then can reroll into sustained hits. So it's a lot of anti-medium infantry shooting. These guys will just blitz Space Marines off an objective, no problem, as long as they're touching it. Pretty standard. I don't know if there's too much to say about this list. This is a regular-ass Militarum list. Cool to see Kazarkin back on the table, by the way. Definitely the, I don't know, the sort of reverse, the nerf reversal on Kazarkin has definitely helped, for sure. Rip the Band-Aid off to all the Space Marines. Yeah, we'll talk about all 40 Space Marine lists. All right, boys, let's go. We're into it now. Nicolas Seguier from Team France. Also, high-performing as well. This is another high-performing Astra Militarum list. Tempestus Command Squad, Platoon Command Squad, Lord Solar, Ursula Creed. So we have the Lord Solar Master Vox combo. Triple Catachin Jungle Fighters. Triple Bulgrin Squad, 18 Bulgrin this time. 5 Tempestus Scions. It's the only Tempestus Scion squad, so we just have 5 with the Command Squad, which is interesting. Earthshaker Carriage Battery, a Basilisk, so you get 2 slowdown guns, 2 Rogaldorn Battle Tanks. To take the middle of the table, a Chimera, a Torox. Not a Torox Prime, just a regular S Torox. What is he doing? Is he just moving around? Is he just a cheap Chimera? Did we not have enough points for another Chimera, so we had to take a Torox instead? Might literally have been the case. To take a Catachin Jungle Fighter team? I think that's literally what happened. Yeah, we're on 200 points on the money. It's like, I needed one more dedicated transport. I could take another Chimera, but it's 5 more points, so I'll take a Torox instead. He's just strictly worse. I guess he's got an autocannon, which is theoretically better than the multi-laser. But let's get it shooting infantry. Or usually you take flamers, I guess, on the Chimera. Yeah, double heavy flamers. It's nice to have a a discount transport. A Chimera from Wish. William Furman from Team Switzerland with Leagues of Votann. Very cool. One Einherjar champion. I think, did we talk about this list for War Masters? I think we did. Double Hearthkin Warriors. It's 4 Sagittors, 2 Chthonian Berserks, so we get to split the Berserks between the Sagittors and the Hearthkin Warriors. Or the Berserks and the Hearthkin Warriors between the Sagittors, I should say. A big Einherjar Hearthguard unit, 1 Land Fortress. No, this feels different, actually. Did he have a Land Fortress in War Masters? Maybe not. Big, huge Hearthguard unit, a Land Fortress, 15 Hernkin Pioneers, 1 Hernkin Jaeger, so we can screen out the Infiltrators and then scout move with the Hernkin Pioneers and all these Sagittors. Then you have a big Land Fortress to sit in the middle of the table. And then Rapid Ingress, a Hearthguard unit with, it's a charge reroll from the champion, right? So they're good on the counterpunch there because they're a little bit. You got a little bit of extra speed. Oh, I did not click on the champions sheet. It is charge rolls, yeah, reroll charges. So they get a little bit of additional speed. So usually you just drop them in the center of the table, and they usually go for like a 5 or 6 inch charge on something that was out of line of sight, and then they can, with the reroll, they have a pretty good chance of hitting it. Pretty classic. Pretty classic. I feel like I've talked about that list before, though. I don't feel like it's new. Let's see. What else we got going on? We talked about Adeptus Custodes. A little bit of Chaos Space Marine action. I think there was a higher placing Chaos Space Marine, I believe. And so this was part of the downside, I guess, of covering these lists. It does feel like there's kind of a monoculture for a lot of these armies. the army compositions changed a little bit between teams. Like most teams had the high scoring armies, and most teams had every team had Space Marines. But within those factions, the teams were the lists were pretty set in stone. At least the detachment selection. Renegade Raiders from Matt Bonet here, rocking triple Dark Commune, Master of Executions, Cypher. Do we have a Cursed Cultist for the Dark Communes? Yeah, we do. Triple Cursed Cultists. So a lot of board control. 2 Predator Destructors, 2 Chaos Rhinos for the Legionaries to jump around with. So, like, I don't know. It's kind of a normal Renegade Raiders list. It feels a little sad because I want to talk about Chaos Space Marines quite a bit, but it does feel like Chaos Space Marines is the Renegade Raider show right now, which I guess is, like, probably fine. At least they have a good detachment that they're seeing success with. But and I think it is especially good in the team events because the transport lists can be very difficult for specific enemies to deal with, and also you get to be like extremely fast and get these like alpha strike, the potential for like big alpha strikes. But I think that essentially every Chaos Space Marine ran Renegade Raiders, at least in the top end here. Boris Mishev. Oh, no, this is a Pact Bound Zealot. Oh, all right. Well, I'll eat my words, I guess. Double Chaos Lords, Cypher, Undivided Dark Commune. The Chaos Lords are Mark of Slanesh, so we get Advance and Charge out of them for a CP. Triple Dark Commune with Undivided for Profane Zeal. 1, 2 Cultist units. 4 Slashy Legionary units. 2 Slash Rhinos. And then do we have... Yeah, so we have like kind of the it's a little bit of like the Manny Chima special, but the 2x5 Legionnaires. One has a Lord, so you kind of save the Lords until you need something absolutely like just demon hammered into the sun. And the Legionaries, you use the Legionaries to trade for objectives because they're so good at fighting other people's utility infantry. They just like hop out, advance and charge. They have a really long threat range out of the Rhino, and then they get wound rerolls on the objective in melee, and they have a bunch of chainsword attacks. So they just like they'll kill 10 like idiots. They have a pretty good chance of killing 5 Space Marines. That one's a little bit scarier, but at least they'll kill enough to take the objective away, and they can scam your objectives, and then when a big thing comes, you can just drop the Chaos Lord out and kill it. Triple Curse Cultists for the big dudes to jump into. Warp Talons. The big Warp Talons is Marcus Slanesh for the 5-up sustained hits. For extra killing power. Beast of Nurgle and a Nurgling squad. The Warp Talons, I imagine... I've watched so many Dark Pact tests get failed more recently that the Warp Talons feel a little scarier. Every time I look at them, I'm like, ooh... There's like a 20% chance of Warp Talon just dies. Basically, every time you roll that leadership check. It's probably less than that. It's probably closer to 10 or 15. But it's like, it seems so scary because a single Warp Talon so much potential damage in this unit. Because if you then fail to kill whatever you charged, the Warp Talons just get picked up. It's so interesting. All right, well, fair enough. I guess we do get a little bit of a detachment variance inside Chaos Space Marines. All right, chat. What else do we want to take a peek at? I'm actually kind of interested in Aeldari lists. Let's take a look at the top Eldar over here. Thomas Woback from Austria. Dev Wounds Go Burr is the name of the list. He is a troop master. Oh, wow. He is dev wounding all over the place. He's got Candyman, Artsarch Wayleaper with Phoenix Gem, classic. Candyman, and a Troop Master with Weeping Stone. So he'll generate Fate Dice when his unit kills people. Forgot about that enhancement, chat. That enhancement rules, actually. We should probably see that more often. Storm Guardian unit. Double Falcons. Triple Shadow Specters. Double Skyweavers with Haywire Cannons. Blow up some vehicles with those bad boys. Striking Scorpions for Candyman. A bunch of them. Hot damn. So we get one unit to block out other infiltrators, and the other unit with the Karandros to actually kill people. Double Swooping Hawks, a Harlequin troop for the Troop Master to jump into. He gives them devastating wounds as well. So it's another devastating unit. And that unit, they have so many attacks. You almost just take their like, we did take the special weapons for the Strength 4 AP1. But you almost just take their little sword, their like 5-attack sword, and just roll a bunch of attacks and try to get damage on people. But the special weapon's almost certainly better. And then triple warp spiders as well. Yeah, just a million billion little tiny devastating attacks. Just tickle you with mortals until you die. Tickle, tickle. You get flamed by 3 units of warp spiders and charged by a Harlequin troop. You're probably gonna get killed. Colin Power from Ireland also rocking Aeldari. Ooh, a nice Ynnari build. Yvrain plus Lilith. A Cabalite Warrior team. Look at this weapon loadout for Cabalite Warriors. They're so funny. They have like 5 special weapons in the unit. Witch Squad. Triple max Dark Reapers. 6 Dark Reapers? No. Oh yeah, no. These are small. Just kidding. For some reason, my brain went backwards in time, and you still had a minimum unit size of 3. No. We're taking 5s. I'm an insane person. That would be crazy. Howling Banshees, 5 Scourges times 3, all with Haywire. Looks like 1 Darklands, a bunch of Haywires, and this is the 1 Darklands build plus 3 Haywires. Yeah, I like that build a lot better than the classic all Haywire or all Darklands. Those only make sense if you have access to pain tokens, which you don't. You just have the Battle Focus reroll, which the Scourges can make good use of. And interestingly, I think these Haywire focus builds are probably much more effective in this format, because you lose out on the downside of just hitting like demons or Tyranids, or like to a lesser extent like Thousand Suns, and everything in their army being a monster. And having literally no use for Haywire weapons. Like, the Haywire weapons just become absolutely useless, and your expensive Scourges are just a utility unit. Because you can just be like, hey, Captain, please don't put me into the matchup where they have nothing but monsters. And put me into the matchup where they're all vehicles. And suddenly my Haywire blasters go insane and murder people. And it makes a lot more sense, honestly. I think these Haywire focus builds seem excellent in team formats. 2 Striking Scorpions, 2 Swooping Hawks, a big Harlequin player troop for Yvrain to jump into, 10 Warp Spiders, a Venom, and a Wave Serpent for the Yvrain and Harlequin troop wombo combo. Venom probably just takes the Cabalite Warriors. The one thing I saw the Venom do the other day, we were just talking about it on stream yesterday, actually, was you put you put Splinter Cannons, the Splinter Cannon guys inside the Venom with the Combat Squad effect, and then you Blade Storm it. So you get it's extra AP on critical wounds, I think. Is that right? Am I a crazy person? Yeah, it's plus 2 AP on critical wounds, and they're all anti-infantry, like 2 or 3, or 3 or 4, I think. If you take all the splinter rifle guys. And so suddenly that unit just becomes like AP3, like innately, which goes nuts against like tough infantry units, which is insanely strong. I saw one guy do that, and I was like, how come this doesn't get played more often? Because this combo seems amazing. Yeah, the Blade Storm technology, gorgeous. Plus, it's like 3 Splinter Cannons, right? With Sustains as well, and Battle Focus, or yeah, the Battle Host reroll. Good stuff. All right, chat. Any other factions that we want to take a peek at? We are sort of coming up on the onto the end of the show here. A little World Eaters action. Marco Santo Padre, rocking Angrand Avocado. In a Berserker Glaive, Master of Executions, double Jackals, Corn Berserker unit, 1 Rhino, triple 8-bound, plus a Spawn and a Carnivore. Carnivore's cool. Carnivore's kind of sweet. It's a good sort of anti-tank punching unit that's not infantry based. The downside is a lot of the 8-bound kind of fall apart pretty quickly once they get close to the opponent. A lot of people just pick up 8-bound really like too fast for World Eaters to sustain. But the Carnivore is a little tougher, which definitely helps. Although it doesn't benefit for Blessings with Corn, which is always sad. Yeah, I think the big benefit of the Splinter Cannon version of that combo is that the Splinter Cannon's already rocking AP value, right? And so you're pushing to AP3 rather than starting at AP2, which doesn't feel quite as good. Plus your multi-damage as well. So like the Hellions are 2 shots, right? So even if you have 10 of them, yeah, they're 2 shots, twin linked, anti-infantry street 3. So if you have 10, you're shooting 20 shots, but you're half damage. You're doing half as much damage because you are only 1 damage, if that matters, to be fair. And your AP is not as good. You obviously are doing other stuff, although it's very expensive, I guess. 170 points, which is, I guess, not dissimilar. Well, no, half a cavalry unit and a venom is like 120. So you're shooting basically twice as many shots, but actually inflicting half as much damage with downside because your AP is lower. So if you're shooting at like a Space Marine in cover, they're probably saving on a 4, even against the critical wounds, and then versus if Splinter Cannons, it's saving them on a 5 and then killing them when they fail to save. So I feel like I don't know. I think that the output is like more similar than than the Hellions would like it to be. Yeah, the 17 points a model for this guys is like, I don't know, man. Like, I guess, I don't know. Maybe if they were lanced, I don't really understand why they don't have an invuln save. I guess they have a 6-up. I don't really understand why it's not a 5-up. They feel like it should be a 5-up invuln save unit. It's also weird that they're not lance on their glaive. I guess like what they wanted to do was be like, oh, it's 2-sided, so they spin it around, they get extra hits. And you're like, okay, but like strength 4 though, it's not gonna do anything. Lance AP 1-2 damage would be like legitimately good profile, especially because you can't get Sky Splinter Assault benefits. Maybe the Drukhari Codex is some stuff for Hellions. I imagine that there's like hyper fast, super obnoxious detachment in the there's a Stormlance task force detachment essentially in the Drukhari Codex when it comes out. Yeah. It's also weird that they don't, like, I don't know. You compare them to Reavers, and they just feel so much worse. Like, it's crazy. Like they have a good melee attack, I guess, but, like, they don't do the bombing run. They don't have heavy weapons. Like, I guess they have a slightly better gun. These ones, like, actually do have lance. The dude on a bicycle has lance. Like, what is that? If they have a grav talent guy. Which they just get for free, right? Oh, no. You get it instead of the caltrops. Which I guess you always take, because the bombing run's so useful. But, yeah, I don't know. It's just like, it's such a mismatch. Heat Lance with Eldar rerolls is underrated. Is it underrated? Because that thing fucks. The Heat Lance is so dumb, dude. This unit comes in, plinks you for 2 mortals, and then shoots you for like 9 damage with the Heat Lance, and you're like, okay, man. Calm down, my dude. And then scores engage on all fronts, and you're like, okay. And then fire and fades and takes an objective. We're like, please, 60-point Reaver unit, please stop. This is the hardest part for Hellions, right? Hellions are like, all right, well, I got a good melee attack and like a mediocre gun, and the Reaver's like, well, I have this fucking nuts laser beam, and I cost 3 points more than you do, and are faster, and also do mortal wounds. So you're like, what? What? What is that? One of these things is not like the others. If you could face dice him, that would be insane. Yeah, that would be too good for sure. Yeah. It turns out I think a strength 14 Melta 3 with essentially full rerolls is probably fine. I'm curious to see if that profile changes when they get a codex. Strength 14 on a Melta weapon is bizarre. Cuz that's better than a thermal lance, right? Like a thermal lance is strength 12? Yeah, so it's longer range and has a higher Melta value, I guess. But its strength is lower. Why? Why is that? It's a big like a tank, a big anti-tank weapon being carried by a robot. But the little bike-mounted version is like higher strength. Okay, sure. It's wild. Melta tends to be like the identity of Melta tends to cap at strength 12. Almost all Melta is strength 12, unless thermal cannons are. So Crusaders thermal cannon are strength 12, right? Unless they push the 14. So it's like weird to have this one Melty weapon that's just like super high strength. Yeah, thermal cannon's also strength 12. I don't know. It's just I don't know. It's conceptually very strange. It's a little bit of I don't know, idiosyncrasy, I guess. Also 18 inch range. Yeah. I mean, I guess that makes sense, right? Because like you can have longer range Melta weapons. That's okay. That's the part that doesn't like throw me off. To be honest, the thermal spear being, the Warglave's thermal spear being range 24 is the weird one. To be fair, but like a multi Melta is range 18, right? So like a range 18, it's basically one half of a multi Melta stapled to a bike, and you're like, okay, I get it. But I don't know why it's also 5 strength higher. 5 higher. That's nuts. That's so wild. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's like I don't know. It might be broken specifically in Ynnari, but it's mostly just a conceptual thing. Because it bucks the Melta trend otherwise. It's like really hot though. You don't get it. It's so thermal. It's just extra thermal. That's what I should play. We were talking about playing Eldar on stream. Maybe I should play Ynnari with a bunch of Reavers. I do love them. I think they're cool. And they do have a Heat Lance that does 1 trillion damage, and you get your Vrain. We could play that Vice Arc list. I really want to play the Vice Arc, even though I don't think he's good. I just want to play him because he's cool. All right, chat. Well, I think we're kind of rounding out the discussion here. Congratulations to Team France, by the way, for taking down WTC. I'm gonna do a breakdown of all their lists probably tomorrow. So stay tuned on the channel. That will be the video for tomorrow. Stay tuned as well for Thursday. I'm gonna repost my Tactical Tyrannosaurus post. I have a new channel, chat. Did you know that? Isn't that cool? And I'm gonna repost the link to it. It is getting set up right now, but the first video should be live on Thursday. It's super long, and I put a lot of time into it, so please go watch it, and please go subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it if you do. It looks like 4 people subscribed. I appreciate that. 4 people who subscribed. Because, yeah, the quicker we can get that channel monetized, then the better. Because, I've been doing it pro bono so far, which is basically eating all my editing time for the last 2 weeks. But I'm excited for it. We're going to do some 40K video game content. We're going to talk about Space Marine. We're going to talk about Space Marine 2. We're going to do some deep dives. We're going to do a little lore. There's a little lore in there. A little sprinkling of lore. Little tidbits. And a lot of like game history, which I love. Which is super fun. So go check that channel out. Please go follow me on Twitch. Jean-Marc, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you. I'm going to be live on Twitch in 1 hour from now, 7 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. A single hour. We're going to be playing Chaos Demons versus Stormlance Dark Angels. She was a wild list. It's super cool, and I'm super excited to play against it because I have no fucking idea what's going to happen. I did already win against Dark Angels once in the event, I think, and that was a Gladius Task Force. So maybe we're okay. We'll see. I did kind of scam it though, although I rolled really bad and still won. So I don't know. I feel like I deserved it. But anyway, we'll see how this one goes. I'm excited. It should be a fun game. So yeah, come check that out. I'll be live in a little bit over there. Twitch link is twitch.tv/TacticalTortoise. I will drop that in the chats for the folks who don't have it yet. Ooh. There you go, chat. That's my Twitch. I stream almost every weekday over there. I have a game scheduled tomorrow. There's a commentary game scheduled for Thursday. I don't think we stream on Fridays usually because typically people are doing other stuff. But we do have, I believe that there are games scheduled over the weekend as well. Oh, by the way, speaking of the weekend, I'm currently streaming a local event. I don't have an event link up for that, which I should have put up, but I didn't, so oops. I should have put up to redirect people, but that was a mistake I made. So I'm going to be streaming, it's called the TJ's Executive Event. It is a one-day event, which I don't typically stream, but they did ask me very nicely to come out and stream, which is so I'm going to do that. It's a, who won versus Zach? Oh, Zach won that one, yeah. I had a really bad turn. I zeroed out my secondaries for a whole turn. And he basically picks me up from there. It was very unfortunate. 4 Tyrant Guard. Couldn't kill 5 Cavalry Warriors. I missed 12 attacks with a Tyrant Guard unit. I was like, okay. All right. Well, the dream is dead, I guess. It was unfortunate to score my Ariads and all. That was too bad. That's a tough matchup, though, to be fair. My Tyrannofex did great, though. That guy was fucking awesome. I believe in that guy. I think if we rolled better, we would have been in a better spot. But I was playing Assimilation Swarm, and it feels like the entire point of that list is to roll good. If you don't roll good, if you flub your Feel No Pains, I did at one point I think go like 25 or 26 rolls without a single Feel No Pain. I was like, all right, well, this is substandard. If you don't get your Feel No Pains, then you just lose, and then your units die, and then they don't come back. So yeah, it's not the greatest detachment ever. Probably done with the Assimilation Swarm. It was fun while it lasted, but not a good army. But yeah, it was still a fun game. Hashtag skill issue, for sure. Oh, man. Yeah, it was a weird one. You can go watch it on the Twitch channel. That'll probably make it over to YouTube as well. It was an interesting one. There were some... The Tyrannofex going off on people was amazing. He one-shot 3 vehicles. With 2 hits, 2 wounds, 1 gets saved, and the other one kills an entire Drukhari vehicle. I was like, this guy, he needs to calm down. That was very cool. I liked him. We're playing more Tyrannofexes in the future, that's for sure, chat. That list with 3 Tyrannofexes and Crusher Stampede, we might give that a go. At least, maybe an Invasion Fleet. As well. I don't know. I'm kind of excited for Tyrannofexes right now. Anyway, chats, yeah, so yeah, come hang out with me over there. Subscribe to the new channel and hang out with me on Saturday. So it's going to be live on Saturday. It is a, the reason it's called an executive event is if I remember correctly, it's a cash prize. So it's going to be a small showing, but it should be some high-skill players. And they're kind of rolling out all the stops. The thing that they did for the players, which is really cool, was like they did like I think they have like a catered lunch, and they have like they built a bunch of terrain for it, so they're like kind of rolling out the red carpet for this event. So hopefully it should go well, and I'll be there to stream it. So I'll have an event up for that later this week. Hang out for that, and worst case scenario, you can come and chill with me for Saturday and have a good time. So yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Keep it classy, folks, and I will see you in the next one, which will be in 61 minutes from now. Cheers.